Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
What I say is true. Anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great.
I beg your pardon?
Feed me!
The hell are you supposed to be?
I'm vengeance.
Now this is pod racing.
Finally, worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
Do you have it in you to make it epic?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hundreds of Movies. This is your pilot speaking. My name is Chris Tierney, callsign DVD, here with my co-host.
I'm Ethan, callsign Blondie.
And welcome to Hundreds of Movies. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
As well as can be. Thank you very much.
Can't
Excited
complain.
to be back for another week.
Yes, and it's a doozy this week, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. So this week with Ethan and I got together and we watched the classic fighter pilot films that launched Tom Cruise up into the sky and into the millions of dollars that he's worth now. We watched
sure.
the Top Gun films.
Yes, the Top Gun duology, if you will. Now, for me, I had not seen either of these films before. I haven't seen Top Gun. I hadn't seen Top Gun Maverick, but you had.
This, yeah.
So I think this is probably the first time we've watched something that the other, or at least two films that the other hasn't. I think you hadn't watched The Princess Bride last time, had you?
No.
But this one's even more so with me not watching both of the films, and you had seen both.
Yes.
So this was a very interesting experience to me because I really did not know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I obviously knew going into it that you were a big fan of Maverick. So yeah, I went into this not knowing what to expect, and you obviously had prior knowledge. So maybe we'll start with you before we get into my fresh thoughts.
Yeah.
I guess, what did you think upon rewatching?
So, first of all, just wanted to do a little roll call for the film so we can remember a quick refresh for everyone's names and characters.
Of course.
So for the first film, Top Gun 1986, we have got Tom Cruise as Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell. We've got Kelly McGillis as Charlotte Charlie Blackwood. Val Kilmer as Tom Iceman Kaczynski. We've got Anthony Edwards as Nick Goose Bradshaw, the GOAT. Tom Skerritt as Mike Viper Metcalf. I think that's kind of everyone, your main cast we've got together for that one.
The ones that matter.
And then there's everyone else. There's all the other...
Now, probably should
Jester,
say...
Cougar, Wolfman, Slider, Merlin, Sundown, Hollywood, Stinger.
So many call signs. We probably should say... The first Top Gun has been out for almost 40 years now, so spoilers ahead. Well, there's no point in really being cautious about it. If you haven't seen it by now, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
I did ask myself that upon watching.
Exactly. What were you doing before this, Ethan?
Not living life to the fullest,
exactly.
clearly.
You are not on the danger zone.
So yeah, might as well just say spoilers now for Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. We're not going to warn you again.
Yep.
Turn away if you haven't seen them, or not. I can't stop you.
We can't stop you.
So yeah, what did you think upon your rewatch, Chris?
This was probably the second or third time in my life that I've ever seen this one. My mum and I actually watched it many years ago, and it was the first time watching it, and it was, such a great experience because, you crank the sound up. I think it was still on a DVD back then as well. So, you cranked it up and it's a thrill ride. Watching it again, it's still definitely... The first film is definitely still like such a pinnacle of like 80s action films. I thought Tom Cruise, it was one of his first big breakouts, really. And, he does bring charm, and you can see why it led on to him getting, Mission Impossible and such moving on in the world. And I definitely think it's a strong film for its time, and highly enjoyable.
I think the role of Maverick is just such a role that's suited towards Tom Cruise. He really is in his element there. It seems like he slides in so effortlessly, and it's just it's great to watch, and you can tell he really suits that kind of a headstrong, daring obviously in this pilot, but it applies to multiple different areas of, an action film.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah, he is really at home with this, and obviously it is his breakout, so what can you expect but for him to do more movies of the same vein
exactly
later on. I will say it's quite weird watching a young Tom Cruise, you know. It's so odd because I'm too used to seeing him with what he looks like now, and
perfect facial features, everything's perfect
I know.
now.
And yeah, it's just quite odd to watch you know, a film when you're used to the actor at the age they are in this, you know, the year of our Lord 2024.
Such a time capsule.
Yeah, so it's so odd. And I will say, like, upon like on the subject of his looks, this like is so weird that I was like aware of this, but some of his facial expressions he makes in the film are quite odd. I don't know if you noticed as well. He just makes some weird, like, chipmunky type faces. Like, he scrunches his mouth in a lot. And obviously, he kind of got rid of that with the second film. Maybe he's a bit self-aware. But
that's why he hired Glenn Powell, so he could have a capybara in this film.
Exactly. But yeah, he does make some, like, rodent-esque faces, and it just is a bit odd. Like, Tom Cruise is just a bit of a weird guy, it seems. Just a bit odd. Now, I'm going to give you some of my thoughts.
Yes,
and
please
we'll see
do.
if you can agree with me or not.
Please.
But I will say, the opening of the film, so iconic.
Oh, yes.
So iconic. Just definitely the moment that stands out to me in the opening is when the jet engine starts at the fighter and Danger Zone starts playing for the first time. It's just like so well timed, and it's great. It's just like this is cinema type moment.
It's from the get-go, you're straight into high action, and planes are cool, man, you know.
For sure. Like, if I had seen this film when I was a child, it definitely would have sent me into a phase of I'm obsessed with planes and aircraft and I want to become a pilot. So at least I'm more stable in what my career will be.
I've seen Ethan's recent searches, and he has been looking up F-14 planes.
I've just ever since we watched the film, I've just been staring at pictures of them non-stop. You know, I got no sleep last night because I was just staring at pictures of planes and fighter pilots. But they do just like have such a strong air of cool and badass. All the pilots, the way they just like walk along carrying their helmets and their big, like, you know, vests and gear. It does look really cool.
Well, they were saying that doing some research into the reaction to the film before this film, you know, there were movies about pilots and stuff, but this was the first one that really made it seem cool to be a pilot, like to be a Navy pilot. You know, the film added to the title, and it did actually help an increase of, you know, restoring people's views in the American military, because it was, you know, 86, so the Vietnam War, you know, was quite a bit before that, but this film actually really did boost people, you know, military and American pride.
Definitely.
And I was reading that they actually did, they would put like military sign-up booths in cinemas where they were showing Top Gun at some point.
Oh, they were really
leaning into it.
Yeah, wow, they really used it to their advantage. I will say, just another observation of mine, I always seem to tune into the weirdest things in the films. Everyone is so sweaty in this movie. I don't think there's a single scene where an actor isn't like dripping with solid droplets of sweat going down their face. And I remember saying to you while we were watching, there had to have been someone on set dedicated to like walking around and spritzing the actors' faces with water, because I swear every single scene is just so sweaty.
Every single scene, like even when they're just when you know Tom Cruise is in the elevator flirting, it's just constant sweat.
I know, and obviously it makes a bit more sense when they're stuck in like a tight cockpit, but I can just imagine how like unbearable it must have been to be stuck in a plane's cockpit doing all these stunts all day and just sweat dripping down your face and stuck in a helmet. Oh, I don't envy them, I will say. As cool as they are portrayed to be, I don't envy having to be stuck in a hot cockpit for several hours in the day. And I will say, on those scenes in the cockpit and stuff, you would think that it would be very, you know, bitsy with all the shots, and the editing might be a bit, you know, like too much. But I actually found this like film quite easy to watch. Like, I felt it was filmed in a way that was quite relaxing, and I didn't really have to think too much. I guess some of the plane action sequences, I was like, what is going on? How can you even tell who is the enemy and who isn't? But I will say, for the majority of it, I did feel like it was very easy watching. It was very relaxing for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think also, on the whole, you know, restoring the view of the military, I will say, I think another thing that helped that is how majority of the film isn't centered around, like, actual war combat. It's actually just centered around the training exercises, and that's something I really appreciate, that it doesn't need to, you know, rely on heavy action sequences with lots of, you know, bullets flying everywhere and explosions and stuff. It only really gets to that towards the end of the film.
Very end.
And so it's refreshing to not have to rely on there is an enemy and we must defeat them because America is the best.
Which is an interesting point, because, you know, the more you look into it, there were so many people who are so against this film because they view it as
odd.
Warmongering.
Yeah, like propaganda.
Like, so, like, there were a bunch of actors who, you know, turned down to be in the job because they were like, oh, it's too warmongery.
See, that's so crazy watching it, because it really isn't. Like, obviously there is that sense of, like, patriotism, and with all the giant American flags everywhere,
and they get bigger in Maverick.
Yeah, it's just more so about the camaraderie between the, you know, the flyers and things like that. And yeah, I would disagree. Maybe on a first glance before the film was made, if you got offered it as an actor in the times, you might be like, better not.
Val Kilmer didn't want to be in the film because he said he'd read the script and said it was too silly. And, you know, the warmongering, he doesn't like warmongering in films, but he was actually under contract with the studio, so he had to do it, even if he didn't want to. And, like, Tom Cruise as well, because he was one of the first people they offered it to, but they also offered it to Matthew Modine, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Charlie Sheen, Michael J. Fox. So they, like, really went out for it.
Yeah,
because Cruise was a bit like, I don't know if I'm gonna take it. But the director of this film was Tony Scott. Can you guess any connection who he'd be?
No, it doesn't ring a bell, to be honest.
So his older brother, or his brother, is Ridley Scott.
No way.
So Tom Cruise actually was convinced to take the film from Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott was like, I think you should do this one. It'll be good for you.
He made the right decision, because he probably wouldn't have had as prolific of a career as he does right now. Now, I have some stats for you.
Please do.
I haven't too many, but I feel the need to bring this up. Normally, you're the stats guy, but, you know, just from my end, we have stat number 1. Count on how many times Danger Zone is played in the film. That's 3.
There's only 3
Only
times?
3. We've got, like, I think it was, I literally was distracted enough while watching the film to want to write down how many. It was 3. And then obviously we were joking about this one during Maverick watching it, but Take My Breath Away was played 4 times in the film. Now,
I counted that one as well.
That is crazy. I wonder if you were to buy the soundtrack or, you know, stream it on Spotify, whether they have the songs in that many times in the playlist, you know?
The same time.
Yeah, for authenticity. But that's just crazy how... Obviously, I think both of those films were actually... both of those songs were actually written for the films, both of them.
They were.
And so, obviously, how could they not economize on that and play them more times than...
But there were points... I mean, we were joking the whole time of, you know, any scene that was getting slightly serious or slightly, you know, romantically tense... You know, every single scene was boom, 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 boom. It just kept coming up.
It just kept going, and you know, it's like one time it's like, oh great, another time it's like, okay, this is a bit weird, and then 3 times you're like, why have they used it again? And then 4 times it's like, okay, it's getting a bit old now.
But they are slightly clever that they only include the vocals right at the very final time they use it.
Yeah.
So before you are literally just getting bomb, 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 just on repeat, and then I think it's the 3rd time you get a bit of background, you know, in and R in.
Yeah.
And then you get to it when it comes to that scene, the sex scene, which was weird, which we'll probably discuss a bit more as well.
Definitely, that's definitely going to come up. I will say, I don't actually know if that's a like theme for movies in that time period, I would have to rewatch a ton of 80s movies. We have obviously been watching some.
Every episode has been an 80s movie so far.
But like, I don't know if that's a theme where they reuse songs that much, because this movie is definitely one that relies more on songs than it does score.
Yes.
And I think that's something you see later in Maverick, of how much the concept and the film benefits from having a score.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting to see, was this the only movie that would repeat the songs that much? Were there others? I can
probably answer that question and say, no, it's definitely not the only one to do it.
Well, I say we should bring it back.
Bring it back.
Scrap the composers, bring in artists and play their songs multiple times in a film.
Just write a bunch of songs for the film and just leave it after.
That's how you do an Academy Awards sweep, is just play the same song over and over again. How can they resist?
If Oppenheimer had Take My Breath Away, I think it could have won more Oscars, to be honest.
Yeah, that scene where it's leading up to him finally dropping the bomb, it's gonna... it would pack.
I am death, the destroyer of worlds.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh, it's so good.
So I've actually looked up some stats myself about this one.
Here we go, fact man.
So we've got... So it actually only got 58% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
So it really wasn't received very well critically. Very mixed responses, but with a budget of only $15 million. So quite low, again, mild for the time, but very low for today's standards, which I will compare it now. So Top Gun original, $15 million. What do you think the budget was for Maverick? We're talking today's day and age, the amount of money they can spend on things.
I want to guess that it was like probably like 200 million.
107, between 170 and 177 million.
Oh wow, so it's kind of close.
Yeah. So
yeah, geez, what a jump.
The jump, obviously, because Tom Cruise is worth so much more now.
Yeah, bringing back
filming
classic.
in IMAX and stuff, so a high budget increase. But the original, with 15 million, made 357 million back, which made it the highest grossing film of 1986. Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it was also nominated for 4 Academy Awards and 1 Best Original Song. Which one do you think it was? Danger Zone or Take My Breath Away?
I want to say it's Danger Zone.
Take My Breath Away.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe they were trying to push that, considering they played it one more time than they did Danger Zone.
An Oscar-winning song there. Because they kept bloody using it.
Yeah, they had to have won the award there. I will say, I'm pretty sure I read on IMDb that I think they had to pay like the FBI or something 1.8 million just to use the planes. Considering they had a 15 million budget, having almost 2 million of that just to hiring and using the like military gear is crazy.
They had to pay like, so they paid the Navy a specific amount, which was a few million, to use a real warship to do all the the taking off
the carrier,
of the airship. But there was one point in filming, I just need to find this again, sorry. They actually had to, so they wanted to film one of the last shots with the sun coming down, and obviously they're on a Navy ship, the Navy rules, they're on course. So this one final shot, the captain of the boat had started taking them off course, and so they were actually facing away from the sun. So they had to pay the captain or the Navy, a certain amount. I think it was like $25,000 for him to
just to steer it back the other way,
to veer back onto course, just so they could have the shot. But they, they teamed up with the Navy, all these the military to use their planes to have them in shots, to use all these things. So it really was a collaboration, and I know that. From prior knowledge to other things, it's actually from reading just up there. I've got the MCU behind the scenes book. They talk on the first Iron Man. It's tangent, but it is related. Anytime a film wants to use the military in any sort of way in their film, so the US government actually have to read the script and they have to approve it. So this is another film that Top Gun would have been sent to the military to read over the script to approve it. So
interesting.
That's why it's so. You couldn't do this film without their investment into the film.
It's crazy to think they went to so much effort to include all this military gear, and obviously paying off the captain and such. That would have been such a gamble, considering obviously the reviews weren't great, and it luckily paid off in box office. But that is such a gamble for the time. Yeah,
people loved that film.
Yeah, it's just critics don't.
No,
I can kind of see why, to be honest with you. I reckon this would lead us into talking about something you mentioned earlier, the sex scene. Now, all I wrote down here was, the sex scene made me so uncomfortable, and then in capitals, why are they kissing like that?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you have seen this film, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's all like blue and dark, and like Tom Cruise just starts licking at some teeth.
Oh, it was very uncomfortable.
It's so weird. Like, why is he doing that? It was very uncomfortable to watch, and it actually made me kind of like shrivel up in my seat.
It's the one moment where it just hasn't aged as well as the rest of the film. You're just going, like,
oh, you know, well, look at the time. Oh, the weather outside is nice. Yeah, it was just so uncomfortable, and they kind of bring it back in Maverick, but obviously not as gross.
They definitely pay homage to it, where like they have that one shot, you know, where he is like right on top of her again, but then it's kind of cuts away, and you're like, well, you know,
thank God,
you start getting flashbacks.
We're saved. But yeah, there's lots of little things in this film that are like, that's weird, that's so odd, why did they put that in? And the sex scene is one of them. It just the way they're kissing, it just makes me so uncomfortable.
Well, we can't not talk about the actual goat of the film, or the goose of the film.
Ah, yes,
Anthony
my man.
Edwards' Goose Bradshaw is easily my favourite part of the film.
Yes, 100%. Best character.
He's such a enjoyable part of the film. You know, he's not his wingman, but he's his wingman. You know, in the first bar scene where they start singing "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling," and they play around with the mic, and Goose is
funny.
He's just there for Maverick the whole time, and he puts up with so much of Maverick's shit.
Now, I will say one thing that also makes him the GOAT, going back to my IMDb trivia, it says that Anthony Edwards is the only actor who didn't vomit while filming in the fighter jets.
My guy.
There we go. Another reason he's the all-time GOAT is because he's the only one who was able to withstand the G's and not vomit, which would probably take so much willpower and strength, because I can't even begin to imagine how tough it would have been filming in the planes.
What were your thoughts on, you know, the pairing of Cruise and of Tom Cruise and Anthony Edwards together in the two roles?
I think it works so well. Like, their chemistry is just so great, and it's like so well casted, and just every time that Goose is on screen, it just amplifies how enjoyable the film is to watch. He's just so funny.
The iconic scene of Great Balls of Fire.
Yes,
you know, playing it together, and they're just having fun on the set.
Definitely. I love it so much, and even, like, jumping into spoilers now, but obviously we already gave the warning, when he dies, it just comes out of nowhere, and I wasn't, like, sad about it, just because it was so unexpected. I was like, oh, this is happening now, that's so weird, and his presence is, like, sorely missed throughout the film, because he just brings such a comedic punch.
When Goose dies, you really feel it, because the film, you know, the whole time, it's like, buddy, funny, funny.
Yeah, for sure.
When Goose goes, it really does the not just the energy, but like the vibe of the film really does.
It just drops.
Take a turn, because I think that's why it's so powerful in the film, is because it literally just happens. You don't expect it, because obviously they're going into the tailspin, they're going down, and you think, oh, you know, it's Maverick. He's been, you know, they've been doing this before.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just happens so quickly. I mean, I remember last night watching it. And you were like laughing because, you know, it just happened out of nowhere. And then your face just dropped when it was like, oh, there's, you know, the blood coming.
Yeah, I remember turning to you and be like, wait, what just happened? I'm confused. Because I didn't even realize, I didn't register what was going on, because I saw him come out and he was covered in blood, and I was like, how has that happened? Because Maverick went through the exact same thing as he just did, and he's not bleeding. And then you were like, oh, he hit his head on the like cockpit roof, and I was like, I didn't even notice that. It's so bad, and yeah, it just sucks. But then again, you got to take that risk with a film, kill off the fan favorite character, and because I obviously had no idea about the plot going into it, completely unexpected, and I just assumed he was in the sequel, because obviously I knew there was a sequel, but you know, it was so shocking, and it wasn't necessarily sad, like, although I do miss the character. It was just like, whoa, this happened, and I was not expecting it whatsoever. Just out of nowhere, straight out of left field for me.
Yeah. He was a missed part of Maverick, but obviously, you know, a necessary removal because he's, you know, couldn't be there. But
yeah, I think if they hadn't killed off Goose and had still made the sequel, I feel like it wouldn't have been as refreshing, and the sequel would have veered too much into like, we're just trying to revitalize a beloved classic, and it would have just fallen into the same tropes and been the same thing. And I think that's what makes Maverick like a good second installment, is that he isn't there, and that creates conflict. So I appreciate the step they took. Whether or not they had it in mind that it would become a sequel or not, it was still a good way to go, because it obviously makes it more complex for the characters.
Of course.
Now, I will say that one thing I'm really glad about for the first film is that it didn't just center around the rivalry between Maverick and Iceman, because that obviously would have made it way more stereotypical. And if it had just been, I want to be top of the Top Gun, no, I want to be top of the top, it would have, you know, it made it just a bit boring to watch. And I thought that's where it might have been going. But because that was like a kind of a B-plot sideline, and it wasn't a direct, you know, focus of the film, and that was really refreshing.
It's not even really a rivalry.
Not at all. It's just like...
There's no animosity really between them. There's only like... What Iceman says is completely valid. He's like, you're dangerous to fly with.
Definitely.
I don't trust you. You know, you're reckless. And it's like, he's not wrong.
I'm so glad that it wasn't just centered around like, we're enemies. And it's great that it obviously then went to center around, in the second act of the film, Maverick's internal struggle over the death of Goose. It just makes the characters and the plot more complex, and it's not just your average, like, you know, buddy, like, teammate, we're flying and learning and we're cool hotshots. Like, it actually had some sort of semblance of depth, and I appreciated that. It's not what I expected. So it was a nice surprise to, you know, have that. And I did read that the tension between Maverick and Iceman isn't just down to good acting, as quoted by IMDb Trivia once again. Apparently, Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer kept their distance from each other on set and never socialized.
Wow.
And I think that was kind of a blanket thing for Tom Cruise. I did also read that apparently he just didn't sit with the cast between takes, and he kind of distanced himself.
Okay.
So it's interesting that for such a minor part of the film with the rivalry, that they went to that sort of a length to not socialize on set.
Yeah.
I mean, it helped, but considering it wasn't the big focus of the film, it's odd. Like, was that necessary?
Yeah, exactly. I get that.
But yeah, it's nice to not have a stereotypical plot line, which is what I was expecting from it.
You can easily see how they could have, you know, tweaked the film to make it just a stereotypical.
Definitely.
You know, almost because they are, you know, it is a training school, you know, school rivalry of, I want to be number one, but they actually take the time to make it more nuanced and real.
It's nice how they veer away from those stereotypes, definitely. And, you know, I'm sure many people believe this, and I read a few Letterboxd reviews who said the same thing. The tension between Iceman and Maverick is palpable. You know, I feel like there's a bit of romance going on there. In my personal opinion, in that final scene where he's like, you could be my wingman anytime, they should have kissed. I'm a firm believer. There should have been a kiss there. This film is about gay men. I'm telling you right now. And they definitely lean into it in the sequel as well. Like, it's a bit self-aware. But I'm just saying, Iceman and Maverick, they got something special going on there, you know. I'm just saying what I see, you know. I can read into it a little bit. It's definitely a little bit gay to me. It's a little bit gay, and I'm all for it. I'm sure there are fan fictions out there that
100%
discuss that in depth.
I'm not looking them up on the podcast.
You can search for that if you want.
I'll look up later. So, if people don't know about me outside of, you know, my personal sphere, I am a very big believer in collector of physical media. I've got all of my physical media behind me, as Ethan can see.
Fat stacks.
So Top Gun actually plays a really big part into home media and what we still know it to be today. So obviously it was a great big success when it came to the box office. So naturally the next step is people want to watch it when they're home. But for many, many years, VHS copies of VHSs were very expensive, and so people just weren't willing to buy them or rent them.
Weren't they like hundreds of dollars?
They were really expensive. As people, probably who can listen to this podcast can attest, VHSs were not a huge thing, and obviously DVDs weren't until much later. So Top Gun was actually the first new release blockbuster to be released on VHS with a low price. So it was they only sold it at $26.
Oh wow!
Which for the time was incredible.
Very, very cheap.
And they also backed it up with an $8 million marketing campaign, including a Top Gun themed Diet Pepsi commercial.
Of course, because it does show up multiple times.
It does show up. And the advanced demand was such that the film became the best-selling VHS in the industry's history on pre-orders alone.
Wow.
With over 1.9 million units ordered before its launch on March 11th, 1987. And it eventually overall sold 2.9 million units.
That's crazy for the time. I'm sure that definitely played a part in the accessibility of VHS and making it cheaper easier to come by.
It led to other companies selling VHSs to go, oh, this is selling so well because it's not extortionate pricing.
Yeah.
So then you started to see, the lower prices. Now DVDs are going back up in price because people are still buying them. Buy DVDs, they're important. Yeah, physical media is important.
Especially because you can't really get any Disney ones over here anymore, can you?
Exactly. It's a whole other topic I can talk about for a while. But yeah, it really did very well, not just in the cinema, but in the home media sphere, which I think is really interesting.
And it's so crazy just to think, comparing it to the budget they had for the actual film, 15 million compared to an 8 million advertisement campaign is crazy. They really were pushing for it.
Oh yeah.
And it definitely took big steps for the industry of physical media as well. And who knows, it may have just influenced the DVDs and such that we have today. So
I mean physical, it came in clutch last night because we were looking to try and find Maverick, which it said it was on Netflix and it didn't.
Yeah. And
luckily I've got it on a steelbook so we could watch it.
Saves the day.
So it saved the day. So kids, buy physical media. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That was my spiel about DVDs.
Yeah, well, I think that rounds us out perfectly for talking about the first film.
Before we move on,
there's more.
I actually reached out to my dad.
Oh, yes.
For those who don't know, my dad is actually a helicopter pilot, and he was in the middle of training when the film came out. So I just reached out to my dad and just asked him if he'd be willing to send me a message through on of his experience with the film. So he sent me this nice long paragraph, which I will now read for you.
Yes,
lovely
please,
people.
story time.
So this is from my dad. Hi, Dad. I know you're listening. So he says, when this movie came out, I was an Army helicopter pilot on an operational tour in Northern Ireland. I was pretty much confined to my base and was working with some interesting people fighting the bad guys. No big screen HD TVs, so it was a VCR with the volume turned up full.
Wow.
From a pilot's perspective, I needed to see this movie. How cool was I compared to Maverick, Iceman and Goose? Not even close. No leather jacket, motorbike, hot chicks or anything as fast as an F-14 Tomcat. My equivalent, had they made a less exciting and slightly low-key version, would have been called Pop Gun. It was to me an electrifying, balls-to-the-wall, testosterone-fueled, badass movie. Tom Cruise plays a cool fighter pilot, Pete Maverick, a cocky and overzealous character who some may find his flying style dangerous, others would say confident. Your call on that one, but it is Hollywood. Top Gun 1 features lots of breathtaking, fast and furious jet sequences which are still thrilling to this day and nothing short of iconic. What I can say is that I loved it. What I can say is that I loved it. A real masterpiece, cheesy with lots of tongue-in-cheek flying, an awesome soundtrack which was bang up to date in 1986. It was an instant hit and was watched many times by me and the boys. Probably one of my best ever movies of the 80s. Nothing else came close for a long time. From Pop Gun.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Thanks for that, Dad. That was really cool to hear your experience with a film from your growing up.
Yeah, definitely. It's so cool, and that obviously is a testament to how much the fans really do love the movie. And it was so revolutionary for its time as well, especially some of the shots in there. Wow, the things they did with the camera is just so impressive.
And I will show you, Ethan, just behind this, that is Pop Gun himself from 1988.
So people listening, I'm looking at a picture of Chris's dad in front of a helicopter, fully kitted out in his gear, and he looks like he's come straight out of the movie. I say that he is as cool as the fighter pilots.
There you go, Dad. You're just as cool.
Yes, you're worthy of fitting in with the squad.
So that was my dad's thoughts on Top Gun.
Top Gun.
So I think that does kind of lead us naturally now to flow into the next film.
So before we move on, what did you rate this movie?
I gave original Top Gun 3 stars.
I would have to agree. I rated it the same, 3 stars. Solid, good film, easy watch. You know, if you're ever bored at home or you're sick, stuck inside, you've never seen it before, give it a watch. Mm-hmm. It's entertaining. It's just a good one.
It's an entertaining time.
Yeah, which leads us to the sequel, Top Gun Maverick. This was 2022 it came out, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was the summer event. So I just because I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema when it first came out. So over here in Australia, we don't have IMAX screens, especially on our side of the country. We've got IMAX screens.
Extreme.
We've got extreme screens.
We wish we had IMAX.
I think we did have an IMAX at some point.
We probably did. They took it away from us.
So we have extreme screens, which are just as big-ish, but they've got the most awesome sound quality. So I think it was June 2022. It was me, my mum, and some of my mum's friends who were fans of the first film, and we sat down. We had the prime seating because you got to sit. It's like a few rows back, right in the middle. You know, is where all the sound, you get everything.
Yeah, converges
and
right
before
there.
The film had even started, they play the little, the testing to show you what the sound quality's like. Jesus Christ, I was shaking in my seat because the music was so loud.
Yeah,
the bass
you're
was
right at
turned
the
up.
center of it.
And so when that film starts, and you know how it starts with the Dark Star training test run, the whole cinema felt like it was going to explode because the sound was just right there in your face.
Even us watching it in like a home theater on DVD, it was still so loud, like shaking the walls and stuff, and we didn't even have it that loud. It's just the nature of the engines is just so powerful. Crazy. So yeah, I obviously didn't watch this one, although I was hearing stories of the middle-aged women flocking to the cinema to watch after the classic volleyball scene from the first movie, with hopes that it would return for the second one. So that's about all I knew, was that it was Top Gun and that there probably would be shirtless men. And so yeah, I obviously again didn't really know what to expect, and starting us off like going in like chronological order, one thing I didn't agree with: why did they do the exact same opening? Now I can understand for like nostalgia's sake that they would do it, but surely if you're creating a new film, you don't want to shot for shot, well, it wasn't shot for shot, but in the same vein, create the same opening, like black screen, same text, same music. Crazy that they just replicated it again. Like, I mean, if that's what they're going for, but I was just like, Why am I watching? Did we just play the first one again? Did you select the wrong movie, Chris?
I know, right?
So it was just weird to see that was the choice they made. I think it was just a nostalgia bait, to be honest, for people to be like, oh, this is exactly like what I saw in the 80s.
I think it was a smart use because it's the only time they play Danger Zone.
That's true.
And it is just, I think it literally was just to go, remember this first one? Here's Danger Zone,
Yeah.
It's kind of baiting you in. You're like,
just without the three-peat this time.
You want the cookie, you want the cookie. And then as soon as that, the plane takes off, it literally, they cut off Danger Zone and they just go straight into the film.
Yeah.
And it's just like, remember this? Now we're moving on.
Definitely.
New thing.
Backing it up with my stats, Danger Zone count is 1. Take My Breath Away count is 0. They have an award-winning film and they didn't even use it. There were 4 times and then they just didn't want to use it anymore. Oh well. Well, I will say in terms of the sound, was it Hans Zimmer that was on the soundtrack for this one?
So the score was, Harold Faltermeyer, Lady Gaga, and Hans Zimmer.
Yes, because they really cooks. Like I said earlier, this film 100% benefits from having a good soundtrack, good score.
And it was produced by Lorne Balfe.
Yes. So yeah, having a good score really benefits it, because those action sequences and just to underscore casual scenes, it just works so much better than hearing the same song over and over again. Because there was still obviously the Top Gun theme and such from the first one.
Especially the anthem is so invigorated, and you feel it in your bones with Maverick. Because in the first one, it is just it's just an electric guitar, really, doing it. But this one, you can hear the electric guitar. You've got all the orchestral instruments underneath it, and you really feel it feels epic. That's Hans Zimmer, though. He'll just do that. He'll just jump onto the next project of a film and just go, we're going to make this epic now.
Just cook absolutely every single time. So yeah, it was really refreshing to have that nice cinematic oomph to it that the score really brought. And I will say on the opening, it was very unexpected for me to open to Maverick testing out that new aircraft that literally looks like it's something from a sci-fi film. It was very, very different to what I was expecting, because we obviously got the classic aircraft hangar, the planes taking off, the nice yellow and orange hues, and then to go to him flying Mach 10 was just like, whoa, what an odd shift. And I guess I should have expected that from the first movie, with the unexpected twist of Goose dying. They just sort of
straight away
they hit you with it, and you're just along for the ride. You can't say anything about it.
You're off.
Yeah.
It literally straight away. And you've got that really cool shot where Ed Harris, as the Major, steps out of his car, and he's literally standing just in front of the runway, and then the plane, the jet just goes over.
And straight over, and he gets covered in dust.
As I was saying yesterday, that was a real shot. Yeah. That was all practical. So if you look in the left-hand corner, when the plane shoots off over them, you can actually see the little check-in office. The roof flies off for a second. Apparently, it just flew off because of the sheer force of that jet taking over.
Yeah, watching that, and obviously you pointed it out in the moment, so I was looking at it. Makes me wonder, how did he stand his ground, considering it's ripping a building apart?
You see him. He literally takes a step, one tiny step back. That's just Ed Harris. He can just do that.
Strong, just the strength of
the strength of an angry bold man.
It makes me feel bad for people that live near an airport.
I mean, just around where I live, sometimes we get the jets flying over, and geez, they're so loud.
Yeah, and just them taking off and landing would just drive me nuts, especially if you're right on the border.
If you live in Fightertown, USA.
Yeah, Fightertown, you should better get used to it. That's called a quiet night for me. Planes taking off here and there. But yeah, it's just so mighty and very unexpected. And just overall, this movie is just so visually pleasing. It's lovely to look at. And we obviously mentioned it, watching it, looking at them, opt for more glass in the cockpit shots.
And that's just a natural evolution of fighter jets, is that they do now have more of a 360 view around them,
rather than being cramped and it's just a metal shell, and you get a bit of sky. This one you get the full thing, and it's so beautiful,
and it adds to what they can do with the the cameras in the cockpits, because you can literally see the whole terrain around them, and anytime like a plane flies over them, that really cool shot when Rooster's chasing Maverick, and then Maverick's jet just takes up and goes behind it, and you just see the plane like almost vertical fly behind him. You just get tingles. It's like, oh, that looks so cool.
Yeah, and I remember you saying when we were watching it, the actors were literally left to be their own cinematographers and directors.
They were like taught how to set up their cameras and put them in lens so they could film it while they were on the go.
Yeah, so they were in charge of getting those gorgeous shots of the landscape and the mountains and the stuff. Oh, it's so pretty to look at, and it's refreshing, not just looking at metal behind them.
Yeah,
and obviously it makes you feel less cramped being in there, because obviously those shots in the first film when they are in the cockpit, it can feel very claustrophobic, and knowing there's two people in there as well, and they're aggressively turning around over their shoulders to look around, it just makes me feel like, I just want space.
Yeah.
And you get that in the second film. It's just so pretty. And yeah, overall, just a lovely... You get some of the lovely, beautiful shots in there.
Claudio Miranda was the cinematographer for this one, who also has won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography before. Did the cinematography for this film. Absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah,
some of the
great
shots,
job.
Some of the aerial shots, and there was one specific shot where there's like a camera underneath the plane, and they're quite in low terrain, and you can see the shadow of the plane underneath, and that just something about being able to see the shadow, it's not just CGI put in. It's like you can see it. It's like, I love it. It feels real.
It's great because a lot of the talking scenes that are just very casual between characters, those scenes, they're nothing special with the way they're filmed. They look fine, but as soon as you get to one of those action sequences where they're training or they're in combat, it just is so refreshing, and it makes you look forward to when those shots are coming up next. And it's so pretty to look at, and the way those planes move and they're flown, the stuntmen that are obviously piloting, and even the actors that are piloting them, they just do a great job, and it makes it look awesome. Whether or not it makes me feel like I would step into a plane and fly, I don't know. But it's nice to look at and appreciate at least. Yeah, just so visually pleasing. And onto the cast as well.
Yes.
Everyone following up is so well cast, and I remember upon the reveal of Miles Teller's character Rooster, and I remember you just looking over at me to see my reaction. I was like, oh, no way that it's his son.
When's he gonna notice?
Yeah, and that is just such a good casting choice, both from an acting perspective and visually. He looks so much like Goose.
They nailed it.
It's like he was born to play that role just because of how similar they look. Great. And I didn't even know Glenn Powell was in this film, because obviously he's blown up now with all of his movies recently.
This was really the one because obviously he's been acting for a long time.
Yeah.
He was in Spy Kids 3, which is my favourite.
Yes,
fact.
I know about that, yeah.
So this was kind of where he really started to have his moment, because now, Glenn Powell is Glenn Powell, Twisters, Hitman, he's got
Anyone But You.
And, he's doing well for himself.
He's got a good CV going.
But this was the one which really this, for what Top Gun 1 did for Tom Cruise, I really feel like Glenn Powell has had the same effect from Maverick.
Yeah,
and he's
definitely.
really gone under Tom Cruise's wing of being Mr. Cinema now. It's really cool because, tangent now, but on the press tour of Twisters, I believe it was when they were in America or something, first promoting it, Tom Cruise was actually on the red carpet with Glenn Powell, so he's taken Glenn Powell under his wing, which is really cool to see him taking on a protege, and now Glenn Powell's starting to get his flowers, which started from this film.
Yeah, and it's good that they kind of did the repeat of what Iceman and Maverick had in the first movie, where it doesn't just center on the rivalry between Rooster and what's his call sign? Hangman, that's what it is.
Bagman, as they call him.
Yeah, it's cool that it doesn't center on it, and there's also the tension between Rooster and Maverick, and the whole Goose's death situation, and getting clarity between the characters on that is really cool. It just makes for another good complex film, because it's all about the relationships rather than just like the action. And I will say, just overall on the plot and with those relationships, having it be so complex and having the stakes be so much higher in the second film, especially with the mission where it's like, you need to be able to fly in like this time and it's going to be tight, and like, yeah, those higher stakes makes the film much better than the first, personally, I think. It's just, it benefits so much from high stakes and lots of like intensity and it being very, anxiety inducing, watching it stressful.
The third act of this film is stress. I remember the first time watching it and I just was like, my heart was, in my mouth.
Definitely, I felt the same in that second act.
As soon as they leave that plane, as soon as they leave the airship to go to the rogue enemy state, which is also something I really enjoyed, was that there's no specific bad guy. It's just there is an enemy state and we're going to take him down. Yeah. But the second they take off, I think the daggers 1, 2, 3, and 4. The second they take off from that aircraft and the music starts becoming more droney and like building your anxiety up, and that whole third act, from the whole time going through the canyon under the radar, going up and making both of the shots, you're just like, oh god. You forget for a second that they've still got to then do the dogfight bit after, as soon as they pull out of it. You forget for a second because you're like, oh my god, they hit the explosion. They blew up the thing, and then it's like, oh god, now there's missiles everywhere. And that's where it goes bit balls to the wall.
I think something that really emphasized that was just the way it was set up and the build up to it, especially with the training and how they kept failing, and it was just so intense, and you don't know if they're going to be able to rise to the challenge, and their deadline being pushed forward, and just all those little aspects. Like, it was pretty well crafted in terms of a plot for an action film. It just led to like that whole sequence being so much more stressful because they only have one shot and they've been failing and failing and failing. Can they do it? And yeah, it was just really refreshing to have more action and more stakes, although I wouldn't change the original for what it was.
Yes, I completely agree. Top Gun 1 is a good time capsule of what it, the action movies then, and I feel like Maverick really is a good time capsule for what action movies are today.
Definitely.
And and it paid off because, as I said earlier, it was made on a budget of 170 to 177 million, so it really could up what they could do, and it paid off. Definitely. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
$1.49 billion back at the box office. The second highest grossing film of 2022.
Crazy. What was the first highest grossing? Do you know?
Avatar. Way of Water.
Of course. Had to hit him with the back-to-back Avatars.
It was, this film was so much better received than the original. It got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, wow.
So, it really got a solid response this time. And it also got nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture this time round, which it didn't, I don't believe the original was. And it only won Best Sound. And I will still be mad that they didn't win Best Cinematography. I agree with the sound, because the sound, as we were saying, it is just a
shooketh.
It's a experience,
definitely,
to hear that sound. But the cinematography not winning.
Yeah, what they did with those cameras in the planes is just gorgeous.
Amazing.
And the way they even managed to shoot those combat sequences is crazy. And I know, I think it was
sorry, it wasn't even nominated for cinematography.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was picture, adapted screenplay, original song, film editing, visual effects, and best sound.
Okay.
It wasn't even nominated for cinematography.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, I was saying, I know that I read a little bit about it, and you can kind of notice it when you're aware of it, but some of the shots they did where you can tell they only really had one take to get it right, and they filmed it from as many angles as possible so you can reuse. I think I read something about how the rockets that they used to launch, they were only given a certain number, and they were only allowed to fire them off a certain amount of times, and they had to film from different angles to make sure they got it right, because the military are quite strict with their usage of the gear, and I think that goes for the first film as well. Just the selective shots of what angles they shoot from and what they're actually filming, and having only one shot to get it right is just makes it far more impressive knowing those things, especially with the way the action sequences are shot with the planes darting around each other. It's just,
I think,
so crazy.
Especially in the first one, we kind of pointed it out when they start blowing up the MiG enemy jets. It really looked like they were using the exact same shot of them being blown up, but just from a different angle every time.
Yeah, which probably was the case, probably was true.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. Do you know whether they did use a lot of CGI in the sequel, like with those action shots especially? So,
it does say that they did extensively use CGI in this film. So the F-14s and the Su-57s were put mostly with CGI VFX, and the film had roughly around 2,400 VFX shots.
Wow, that's crazy, because they were done so well, I wasn't even thinking that they were VFX. I literally was thinking, they did this for real, they're talented. So it's crazy to think that they were able to it so much.
They were able to blend it so well, though, that it does really
very well.
Makes you forget for a second that, oh yeah, it's a modern film, of course they're going to use VFX, but it's like, in the moment, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, definitely.
How did they do that?
I didn't even think about, they use CGI here. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that at all. I was just so encapsulated by the solid sequences and solid shots. It just looks so beautiful.
One thing I will say that I did enjoy about this film is in Maverick, in the first one, in Top Gun, it is Tom Cruise, it's Charlie, it's Iceman, and it's Goose. They are the main focus of the film. This one, you really do get to explore a bit more with some of the side characters. You've got Hangman, and you've got Bob and Coyote and Honda. You've got more people you can actually attach yourselves to. It's not just Tom Cruise the whole film.
Yeah, it's cool to have that.
They lean into the ensemble a bit more.
Yeah, it's good to have that range of characters and supporting actors, because it just it makes it not as makes it not seem as if it's just like a money grabbing sequel where it's just for Tom Cruise to replay the role again.
I know that he really was. It took a lot of time and convincing to get it made. It's like 30 odd years. I believe they were trying to get one made in the 90s, but Tom Cruise was just like, nope, it's irresponsible, we don't need it, which I think really does prove that Maverick is such a great film, because Tom Cruise is Mr. Cinema now. He doesn't, especially in recent years, he's only doing things that are gonna work, and it's a credit to the scriptwriters and the producers of this film that they were able to nail it enough that Tom Cruise was like, I'll do it, let's get this going.
Yeah, so I'm glad they didn't just rely solely on him to drive the film to make its money back or whatever.
It's like Beetlejuice. It's a similar vein. It's taken them so long because they wanted. There was demand to make more, but it took time and it took effort, and you can feel the love and commitment that they put to making this film, and it stands out.
Yeah,
even definitely. They were able to honor Val Kilmer's Iceman, in this film, which is a whole other thing, because he actually does. So in the film, Val Kilmer, Iceman, doesn't talk, because they mention that he's got throat cancer, which is actually reflective of Val Kilmer in real life. So he actually has had multiple operations and treatments for throat cancer. So he basically can't talk anymore. So outside of the film, in 2021, he actually worked with a UK-based software company that specializes in voice synthesis to digitally recreate his voice using AI.
Wow.
Good use of AI. So he actually could have his voice from using old footage of him, basically, to recreate his voice. But for this film, they actually didn't use it at all. So the moment where he actually does speak was his real voice, because he wanted to speak him as himself in the film. So he was actually in a lot of pain when he was doing actually speaking, but that was his real voice. So a really good way to honor him, to have him back and still be able to accommodate what's happened to him in real life.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was wondering when we would actually get to see him, if we would get to see him, because obviously they communicate through text messages.
And that's the thing. They could have easily just left it as anonymous text messages.
Yeah.
But they, take the time to add him back in.
I'm glad they didn't shy away from putting him back in, because it's not, in that regard, it's not necessarily just, celebrity cameo from the first film. It serves a function, and it's nice, like, send off for the character, rather than just, like, ignoring it and only have Maverick the one who returns.
Yeah.
But on that, I will say, the introduction of the new love interest and her daughter, I did keep questioning that, being like, sorry, who is this? Because they kept talking like, oh, just like old times, and don't break her heart again. I'm like, but who the fuck is she? who am I looking at here? They really, like, didn't explain that new character. Like, the other new introductions worked really well, but this new love interest, it's like, they put her in just because they know Mav has to have a love interest.
Yeah.
And so it was a shame that they took more care with other things than, this, for example, where it's just like, I own a bar and, oh my god, I haven't seen you in years. It's like, yeah, but who are you? I genuinely don't remember the character's name, because it's just like...
Penny.
Yeah, see, it's just... Why did you... I understand the function she has to the plot, but it was just annoying how they were just like, nah, she's here, and they know each other, and that's all you need to know.
But on the flip side of that, so where was this new character where, you didn't really get the backstory from them? I feel like Rooster was the flip side of that, because you really got to dive into why he doesn't like Maverick, and you can tell that they've got that history together, even though we've not seen it, because in the first film he's a tiny little blonde kid on a piano, and this one you can feel, you really get to dive into why he doesn't like him, why their relationship is the way it is, which I think is a really interesting comparison to the female character. Basically the only other female character is like, she's here, and then Rooster really does get full backstory and motivation.
It's also nice to have that sequence of him at the piano in the bar after Mav's been thrown out, playing Great Balls of Fire, and having that sort of flashback moment from Maverick. And when we watched it, in the moment I did question it, being like, why have they done this? They're just reusing shots, but obviously it works nicely in setting up the sort of, issues that they have with each other that, like, progress through the film. And obviously Rooster blaming Mav for Goose's death and all that, and it's nice that they have that full circle moment coming around, like at the end, working on the plane together, and they're getting along, and
I saved your life. No, I saved your life.
And the photo on the corkboard in the in the hangar. And another, like, full circle moment I really appreciated was in that, like, sort of tail end of the film, of when Rooster gets to sit in the back of the plane with Mav, and it's the planes they flew in the first film. And
it's when like he gets in and he says, God, it's so old.
Yeah, it's so, like, piece of junk. And, it's great to have him in the back as, like, the navigator, just like his dad was. And I did quite appreciate that full circle moment, because it's really sweet, and it sort of, like, it hit home a bit more with, how much we appreciate and love Goose from the first film.
I love during the film when Maverick, at different points when he's up in the air, does say, talk to me, Goose, because it's like, that's what he says in the first film, of obviously, like, talk to me, Goose, but then it becomes more of when he's up in the air, that's where he's closest to his old friend.
And then, like, calling for help.
And then Rooster, nice. He is, when he's up in the air, he does, when he's having, the moment of self-doubt before he becomes brave and doing all the things, he does say, talk to me, Dad. Which I thought was such a nice use of that classic phrase, but adding so much more deep meaning to it.
Yeah, it's great also how they handled Mav and Rooster's backstory, in terms of, we don't get much into, like, what happened between them. We obviously know that he, like, stopped him from, like, pulled
his papers from the Naval Academy.
Yeah, to, like, send him back because they didn't want him to fly, because he couldn't deal with that. And so it was nice to sort of have that. We know something has gone wrong, but it doesn't delve too much into it. It's more about the, like, the fixing side of things. It was nice to sort of have that arc between the characters, because it just added another layer of conflict, which worked really well for the film. So I really did appreciate that.
I agree.
Well, I think that's me done in terms of my thoughts for the film. Would you have anything else you'd like to share, or you reckon you're done too?
I think I'm fully wrapped up. Everything. Oh, I will say, Miles Teller has said that he fully learnt how to play Great Balls of Fire, and they filmed the full sequence, and he was really pissed off when he saw the film because they used like 30 seconds of him playing, but he learnt that full song and it was a full number.
Well, I would expect him to after Whiplash. You know?
Yeah, it's not my tempo.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a talented guy, and obviously that on top of learning to fly a fighter jet.
Yeah,
crazy.
So coming to the end of our thoughts on the Top Gun Maverick, what did you rate Maverick? What was your thoughts, feelings?
See, I feel like we're gonna differ on this for once. We usually agree quite a lot. I rated it 3.5 stars. I think it was definitely better than the first one. I liked it a lot more. But I don't know, I just felt like for what it is, it's not necessarily anything too deep, and like it doesn't like mean too much to me because I don't have that sort of connection with it, and I've only just watched it now, and it's obviously on one of the lists. Like both films are probably on the list of like films to see before you die because it's so iconic. But like, yeah, I enjoy it for what it is. I think based off the rating system we use, it's a good film. It's good. First one was decent, the second one was good, and I like it. Like, no massive real complaints. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, but you know, it's a good film. I think I could come back to it every couple of years if I was with friends to watch it because it's enjoyable. It's easy to watch. It's a pretty film. It's got good characters, and yeah, it's a solid 3.5 for me, I'd say.
Cool.
What would you say your rating is?
The original Top Gun is such a time capsule of the piece. I think it does really good for what it does. I didn't grow up with that film. I did get to see Maverick when it came out, and it really was a moment in cinema for me. Like, I really just... It was completely engulfed. I think I saw it 3 times in cinema. Dedication. I really, really had a moment seeing it. And I know a lot of people prefer the original because of what it is. But for me, Maverick is what I think of when I think of Top Gun now. So it's a 5-star for me.
Oh, damn. 5-star rating. It's a masterpiece.
It is a strong, strong film for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, 5-star.
I can see why, like, having a connection to the film like that, why it would rank so highly for you. So, you know, I don't like contest that. I fully would, you know, support your rating there.
Thank you very much.
Solid. All right, now to close us off, why don't we have our little Rotten Tomatoes percentage guessing game now?
Yes, of course. You went last week. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, hit me. Let's do it.
So to start you off, I have got Zack Snyder's 300 from 2007.
Oh, so this is a film I'm unaware of. Is this a Gladiator-esque film?
Yes, it was based off of a Frank Miller comic book.
Okay.
And it's very Zack Snyder.
Interesting.
Lots of slow-mo.
All right. Can you give me like a little bit of some deets about the film? Is this a film you've seen yourself?
I have seen 300. I've watched it at least once.
Okay. At least
it's got one and done. It's a very iconic quote from it. "This is Sparta."
Ah, yes, I know that.
And he kicks in Gerard Butler. Yes, it's a strong not gladiator film, but it is set in Sparta.
Okay.
And it's a very high fantasy-esque because it's based off of a real event in history, but it's
dramatized.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, knowing that, I think I'm going to give it a solid 68 is what I'm going to go for. Final guess.
Answer?
Final
61.
Oh, I was close.
Very close.
I was close. Nice. All right, interesting. 61.
So next, I've got Adam Sandler's buried film, The Ridiculous Six.
Oh, see, this is another film I'm unaware of. Tell me more.
It is it's very much a play on Western films. It's
like The Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight, Furious 5. You know, it is a play on those types of Western films, and it's Adam Sandler and his buddies.
I feel like because it's not a Adam Sandler film that I'm necessarily aware of, I think it's not going to have done great. I'm going to give it a 12% Final guess.
0.
0! Whoa!
0%.
I was far too kind. I should have known it would have gotten less than Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. 0. Wow.
Absolutely no positive reviews.
Yikes. We should probably watch that one then.
I don't think I want to.
I don't think you'd even be able to find it on streaming services.
I think it was a Netflix film, but it's been gone.
When did this come out?
2015.
Oh, so it's recent. I totally would have thought it would have been a bit older than that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you want to hit me with your last one?
My last one is a childhood life favorite of mine.
Oh,
Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2.
1999.
It's a good one. I'm gonna go for 97. Final guess.
100%.
See, I was gonna pick 100, but I was like, how often do films get given 100? That's deserved.
I was looking this up.
It's a good film.
Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2 both have 100%.
Wow. Good series. That is a solid. Wow. All right. Not too bad. My turn.
Hit me, brother. Hit me.
All right. First one is the Tim Burton-led production of Sweeney Todd, starring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
Now, I have seen this film. It's a cracking film. Not the best adaptation of the stage musical,
but at least one that Sondheim approved of.
That's true.
To be done.
That's true.
It was to tell the truth, it was my first sort of exposure to the musical.
Wow.
I would definitely have a lot of nostalgia for the film, watching it through some sort of like dodgy website online because it was never on streaming because of how violent it was. But yeah, this I definitely was more familiar with this than I was the musical, fun fact. But yeah, what do you reckon that sat at?
I'm going to give it... I'm going to say 68.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
It sat at an 86.
Okay, that's
86,
good.
So not bad. Pretty high. Pretty high. I definitely enjoy it. It has its flaws, but it's pretty good. All right, your next one is Air Bud, Golden Receiver, the sequel to Air Bud. In the first one, he plays basketball. In this one, hence the name Golden Receiver, he plays American football.
Interesting.
What do you think?
Now, I can't say I've watched any of the Air Bud
Neither
films.
have I, but I just know that it might be a little bit crazy. A dog that plays sports.
I'm going to say 22%.
Is that your final answer?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's 21%.
God,
this is a running theme. You're
God
getting 1%
damn it.
within 1%.
That's my superpower, is getting just 1% out.
Wow, 21%. They did not
Damn
like
it.
Air Bud getting on the field playing at the Super Bowl. Damn.
Keep that dog at the basketball court.
Yeah, just trap him inside. All right, and your final one is Hacksaw Ridge, starring Andrew Garfield.
Ooh, now, I love this film.
I've never seen it, but I've heard.
I've watched it so many times.
I know a lot of people studied it when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I know. I know it's about like a pacifist going to war, I think.
It's a decent film. Mel Gibson, I believe, directed it.
Oh, interesting. What do you reckon?
83.
Is that your final answer?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's an 84.
God damn
It's
it, man.
comedic. This is you can't plan this.
It's my superpower.
1% again, above or below 84.
Wow.
Oh,
Damn.
I think I should watch that. I should get around to watching that.
It's good, yeah.
I do love Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield.
He's one of my favorite
very,
actors.
He's very good in that film. He's charming.
Yeah, I like him. What a man. My favorite Spider-Man, mind you, personally.
Interesting.
I like the aesthetic of his Spider-Man. It's just nice.
Yeah, wow. 2 guesses, 1%
Yeah.
both times. Damn it, man.
One day you'll get it bang on. Did I get one
day.
bang on last episode? I don't remember.
I think you were very, very close.
Very close. I think you've already gotten one bang on before, but
No, I don't think I've not hit one bang on, but Nightmare Before Christmas was
close
off as well.
Yeah, well, look at that. I think it's going to become a theme then. I'm just going to constantly pick ones that you will get like close to, but not exactly.
Just close. Damn it.
Well, would you like to lead us out now?
Yes,
Captain?
I think I will. So that's been an episode of Hundreds of Movies. We've been listening to the Top Gun films. As I said before, buy DVDs. Physical media is a great art. Don't let it die out.
And especially when they look pretty in a steelbook.
Exactly.
And the art is nice.
You can follow me on all social medias at Chris_Thing2, and you can follow me on Letterboxd at Apollo the Cookie.
You can find me on Instagram at Ethan_Battle, and you can find me on Letterboxd at _Ethab_. Obviously, follow the Hundreds of Movies socials as well.
Oh,
we're on most things. We're on Instagram. We're on X or Twitter. We're on TikTok, although nothing has been posted there as of yet. One day we'll get around to filming ourselves. But
doing something.
But yeah, follow us on there. You can join our Discord if you like. We have a Discord.
Amen.
But yeah, find us, seek us out on all the places you can seek us out on. Listen to the previous episodes if you haven't listened to those before as well.
Give us a nice rating if you liked us.
Please.
Give us a bad rating if you didn't like us.
If you leave us a 5-star rating, we'll track you down and come and thank you personally.
We'll do the Trolls episode.
We'll give you a shout out.
We'll do the Trolls episode.
Yeah, who knows? You could even end up as a guest on the podcast if we like you that much.
Well, I think that's been an episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Until next time. All right, this is Blondie signing off.
And this is DVD. See you later.